Welcome back to Financial Health, everyone. Brought to you by John G. Ullman and Associates, joined as always by President and COO Jason Nickerson. And Jason, I really am excited about this topic that we're talking about over the next couple of weeks. I think it's something that a lot of people are going to be interested in as well. We are talking real estate. Of course,
Yeah.
we are heading into one of the busier seasons for the real estate market. So we figured, really no better time than to start tackling this issue with a new mini series for home buyers, or even if you're just considering buying a home versus, maybe you've been renting for a while and you've been thinking about what to do. There is so much ground to cover. So I'm just going to let you get started.
Yeah, I think, the best place right now for us to start, because we're going to break this actually into a couple of different subsets, a couple of different groups of home buyers or people making that decision of buy versus rent, right? So this week, I thought we would start with our first-time home buyers, right? No better place to start than at the very beginning. So any of you viewers that are out there that are listening, watching right now, grab your pen, your pad, your tablet, however you take notes, because we're going to cover a lot of information in a very short period of time.
All right. Well, let's talking about first-time home buyers. I know that this can be kind of overwhelming and intimidating as you're wading into this for the very first time. And of course, your home is likely to be the largest investment that you've made. So what are some things that people ought to focus on as they start this process?
Yeah, if you're in that first-time home buyer subset, I think probably one of the biggest things that we have to address is pushing ourselves over that decision cliff, right? Should we continue to rent or should we buy? And I'm of the opinion that this crowd really needs to push themselves into home ownership kind of as quickly as they can, but while maintaining good fiscal responsibility, right? Building equity in a home can be a real game changer for our financial future. And if we take a look, we're going to put up some graphics. We take a look at how rents have increased over the last 25 or 30 years. There's been a substantial increase. That is very, very true, but it's probably 1.5 to 2 times increase. Now, if we put up another graphic, and this is home values over a similar time period, it's almost a 3 times improvement in value of the home. Now, there's a lot that has to go into it, but what I want this crowd to think about is continuing to rent versus buying. If you buy, that's money going essentially back into your pocket. It's an investment in an asset that has the potential to appreciate. So this is something that can work for you versus rent, which is really not going to work for you.
Exactly right. And you mentioned, as you kind of dove into that, about maintaining fiscal responsibility. So what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, Renee, we actually witnessed this not too far back in history between 2007, 2009, or actually the antithesis of financial responsibility, right? Where people were going out and buying homes they really couldn't afford. And so what I talk about in terms of financial responsibility is having an overall responsible budget built, not just around the purchase process, but ongoing maintenance as well, right? So this means you have to have enough money for a down payment and closing costs. You also have to have a forward-looking budget around maintenance and improvements to make sure that home really is appreciating, like we showed on that one illustration. There are also some minor things that tend to get overlooked, right? Appropriate steps around the purchase process itself, like getting an inspection or purchasing proper levels of insurance. We don't really want people to skimp there.
Absolutely. And you touched on that down payment. I think that can be maybe one of the biggest hurdles to overcome mentally as you start this process, is making sure that you have enough for that down payment. And you hear a lot about 20%. That's generally the accepted standard of what a down payment should be. That's in a lot of people's minds anyway. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know there are other professionals in this space that would hold pretty firm to that 20%, and that's a must before getting into home ownership. I'm not totally on that train 100%. And I think it's really a continuation of just maintaining good fiscal responsibility. What this first-time home buyer subset has to understand is that if you don't go in with 20% down, you're going to have a higher monthly payment because of mortgage insurance, also known as PMI, right? So it's not a bad thing, but just know you're not benefiting from that. That's not insurance for you, that's insurance for the bank. So if you are going to go in with less than 20%, just have a good line of sight that you're going to be able to eliminate that in a short period of time. What does that mean and how do we do that? Well, to eliminate PMI, you need to have a loan to value ratio of 80%. meaning your mortgage can be no more than 80% of your home's value. There's multiple ways to get the home value up, and that can be through aggressive pay down of your mortgage, right, to get yourself at that 80% or below, or major upgrades you may have planned as you get into that home that can increase the value, or maybe it's a combination of both of these.
That's right. And just for my own like personal experience, I bought my home about 15 years ago and I was in no place to put down 20%. So I was able to do, I believe it was 3.5. And my PMI just came off maybe 2 years ago. And it wasn't a significant amount of money, but any amount that your mortgage payment can drop is always helpful as well. So that kind of leads us into the next aspect of this conversation, and that's mortgage rates. And that's something that has been in the headlines consistently for the rates that they're at over the past couple of years. So how do you feel about where mortgage rates are and where they might be going?
Well, that's a great question and one that we get a lot. And I'm going to have to apologize to our viewers because my crystal ball is broken. It's been in the repair shop ever since I got into this business. It's probably going to be there forever, right? But in all seriousness, I think the best way to leave this episode is with a thought, right? And that is, I want people to think about this question I'm going to ask. If you are waiting for rates to go down, that's okay. But what do you think will happen if to home values if rates do go down? And I'm going to leave right there because we'll come back and we'll address that next week.
Okay, well, we look forward to that conversation. So everyone come back for next week where we'll talk about is now a good time to sell my home or upgrade to a new one. So I look forward to hearing from you next week on that.
Yep, we'll see you next week.
See you then.